Okay, so Nick, we are March 1st, but we're talking about the January numbers. Can you talk a little bit about that? Why we're taking a little while here to get into the January numbers, actually?
Oh, sure. The employment situation is always released the month after the month of data that we're talking about. So usually, let's say February release will come out in March. Once a year, though, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which creates these estimates, goes through a benchmarking process where they adjust the data based on additional information that has come in from employers, and they go through that process in January. So it takes a little while to do the benchmark on the 2015 numbers and wait until the 2016 numbers for January can be released.
So you talk about benchmarking. What exactly does that mean? Is that just kind of setting a baseline, or what does that mean from a statistics standpoint?
Well, the month-to-month job growth figures that are released are estimates based on a survey of business establishments, but we don't really know what all businesses were doing when we create those estimates. So the benchmarking is the process of taking additional information that's more complete from the employers and adjusting those original estimates to meet that complete information that came in.
Okay, so we're looking at now going from December of 2015 to January 2016. What did we see in the month-to-month numbers here as we enter into 2016?
Well, Oregon's labor market was still really strong going into 2016. In January, the unemployment rate fell to 5.1%. That's down from 5.5% in December. And Oregon employment increased by 9,900 jobs in January.
So 5.1%, kind of give us a perspective here. How does that measure as far as other economic expansions Oregon's had before?
It's about where we usually are during an expansion. It's right about where we were in the mid-2000s and just a little bit higher than the lowest unemployment rate of the mid-1990s when Oregon's unemployment rate actually got down to 4.7%. So we're very close to that.
So when we're looking at job growth, it seems like it's pretty much across the board fairly strong.
Yeah, nearly all industries are adding jobs. The bigger industries are adding the most jobs, like professional and business services, leisure and hospitality, but we're also seeing a lot of growth in manufacturing and in construction.
So you talked about those two, construction, manufacturing. Here you are in January with construction showing a pretty good seasonal job gain. A little surprising. Was it weather related, or kind of what's going on behind those numbers?
I think we've seen a lot of strength in the housing market and a general increase in construction activity. Keep in mind that these numbers are seasonally adjusted, which means construction employment did fall in January, but not as much as it normally does, which it turns out to be an economic increase. So that's where we get the seasonally adjusted gain in construction jobs in January.
So now you have a full set of data for 2015. When you look back over last year, the last 12 months, what did we see as far as job growth in Oregon?
Well, Oregon added a lot of jobs last year. Right now we're looking at a 12-month gain of 59,600 jobs. That's about the same number of jobs that we were adding per year in the mid-90s. That translate into a little bit smaller job growth of 3.4% over the last year, but relative to the U.S. economy, that's really strong. The U.S. economy is growing at about 1.9% in terms of over-the-year job growth.
So how would you characterize this job growth here? If you were to look at it, are there just certain drivers that are just kind of driving this economy forward? Like in the 70s, you had timber that was kind of pushing everything, or how would you kind of characterize this job growth for Oregon right now?
You know, it's tough to point to any one industry that's responsible for all the growth. The largest industries are adding the most jobs, but that would be expected. We're just seeing all around broad-based job growth right now.
So how is that in terms of the labor force here in Oregon? Are we starting to see that turn as well and see a growth in people getting into the labor force right now?
Well, Oregon's labor force, like the U.S., is on a general it's growing, but it's on a decline in terms of the share of the population that's employed or looking for work. So the labor force participation rate is generally declining, and that's because a lot of baby boomers are aging into retirement and leaving the workforce altogether. So right now, that's being counteracted a little bit by the strong job growth, but Oregon's labor force participation rate of 61.6% is low historically.
So, kind of taking the overall story from the numbers right now and over the past year, what does it look like for Oregon's economy in just the short-term foreseeable future here?
Well, Oregon's labor market right now is as strong as it was during any of our previous recessions. So we're seeing the sort of job growth and low unemployment rates that you'd expect during a time of expansion.